Her daughter watches her poor mother starve so she can eat, until a billionaire shows up and does the unthinkable. The town square was crowded that late afternoon. People coming and going, muffled conversations, the smell of food wafting from the food trucks parked around the central fountain. Sarah Miller held her daughter's hand tightly while looking at the illuminated menu for the sandwich. Her light eyes skimmed the prices, mentally calculating what she had in her wallet. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, with a few loose strands falling onto her face. Emma swayed beside her, her blue eyes fixed on the trailer's colored lights. Mummy, can we eat?" The 5-year-old voice was full of hope. Sarah opened her wallet. She counted the crumpled bills. She counted again, as if the numbers might change. "You can choose whatever you want, sweetie." Emma pointed to the chicken and cheese sandwich. Sarah forced a smile and placed the order. "Just one?" "Just one," Sarah confirmed, handing over the money. They sat down on a wooden bench nearby, beneath a tree. The orange light of the late afternoon filtered through the leaves. Emma held the wrapped sandwich with both small hands, as if it were a treasure. Sarah watched her daughter carefully peel back the paper. Her stomach rumbled quietly, but she disguised it by adjusting the bag on her lap. Emma took the first bite. She chewed slowly, savoring it. Then she stopped and looked up at her mother. "Mommy," Sarah stroked her daughter's hair. "What is it, my love?" Emma held out the sandwich. "Eat with me. I'm not hungry." "But you haven't eaten anything today," Emma insisted, her small eyes worried. "Yes, I have. I ate before I picked you up," Sarah lied, trying to sound convincing. "You eat. Enjoy it while it's still warm." Emma didn't look convinced, but she went back to eating. Every bite was slow, as if she wanted to make it last as long as possible. Sarah looked away. She watched the other people in the square, families laughing, couples sharing food, groups of friends making plans for the evening. Everyone seemed so carefree. She blinked quickly, pushing away the tears that threatened to fall. A few yards away, Ethan Sterling walked unhurriedly. He had just left a meeting that ended earlier than expected. His tie was loosened, his jacket slung over his shoulder. He came through this square every day, but rarely paid attention to anything. Today was different. He saw the blonde woman sitting on the bench. He saw the little girl beside her, eating slowly. There was something about the scene that made him stop. The woman was watching her daughter with an expression that took Ethan a few seconds to understand. Love mixed with pain, pride mixed with desperation. Then he saw the child hold out the sandwich again. "Mommy, just one bite, please." "You don't need to, Emma." "Mommy ate." "But I want to share with you." "Eat, my love. I'm already satisfied." Emma lowered the sandwich, clearly confused. She looked at the food, then at her mother, and went back to eating. But now she chewed faster, almost guiltily. Something tugged at Ethan's chest. He had seen a lot in life. He had been through difficult situations. But that scene, that mother denying herself food to ensure her daughter ate, that touched a place he thought no longer existed. Without thinking much, Ethan turned and walked up to the food truck. "2 identical sandwiches," he ordered, pointing to the same one he had seen the girl eating. "Any drinks?" "2 juices too." "Orange." He paid and waited, glancing occasionally at the bench where they were sitting. The woman was now stroking her daughter's back, an automatic gesture of affection. When he picked up the order, Ethan hesitated for a second. Would she accept? Would she be offended? But he was already walking towards them. Sarah felt a shadow approach. She looked up and saw a man standing in front of her. Dark hair, kind eyes, holding a paper bag. "Excuse me." His voice was calm. "I accidentally bought too much. Would you take it?" Sarah blinked, confused. "What?" "I ordered 2 sandwiches without thinking. I'll throw it away if no one wants it." He held out the bag. Emma stopped eating and looked at the man. Sarah opened her mouth to refuse, but the words wouldn't come out. She looked at the bag, then at his face. There was something sincere there, No judgment, just kindness. Her voice failed. Please, Ethan said softly. It would be a waste to throw it away. Sarah swallowed hard and took the bag with trembling hands. Thank you. It was almost a whisper. Ethan smiled faintly and nodded to Emma. Enjoy. He walked away before she could say anything else. Sarah stayed put, looking at the bag on her lap. She slowly opened it and saw the wrapped sandwich and the juice. She felt her eyes sting. Mommy, now you can eat, Emma said excitedly, grinning from ear to ear. Sarah unwrapped the sandwich with still trembling hands. She took the first bite and had to close her eyes. It wasn't just hunger, it was relief, it was gratitude. It was shame and hope all rolled into one. Emma leaned her little head against her mother's arm, satisfied. The man was nice, wasn't he, Mommy? He was, sweetie. Very nice. Ethan had walked about 20 yards when he stopped. He turned slightly and looked back. He saw the woman eating, her daughter smiling beside her. Something in his chest stirred again. He didn't know these two. He didn't know their story. But somehow, in that moment, he felt he had done something that truly mattered, something small, but real. He put his hands in his pockets and kept walking, but the image of the two remained etched in his mind. Sarah finished eating in silence. She wiped Emma's mouth with a napkin and gathered the trash. They sat there for a few more minutes, just appreciating the moment of being together without hunger. When they finally got up to leave, Sarah looked around, searching for the man, but he was already gone. She held Emma's hand and started walking back home. Her steps were lighter now, the weight on her chest a little smaller. Mommy? Yes, my love. When we have money, should we help someone too? Sarah squeezed her little hand and smiled, this time for real. Absolutely, my love. Absolutely. Night was beginning to fall over the square. The food truck's lights shone brighter. Life continued its rhythm. But for 3 people that afternoon, something had changed, something small, but profound. 3 days later, Sarah was in the city center again. She had a thin folder under her arm with several resumes printed at the public library. The hope of getting something still existed, even after so many closed doors. Emma walked beside her, holding her hand. The girl was quieter than usual. She had already complained about being tired twice. Just one more store, sweetie. Then we'll go home, okay? Emma nodded, adjusting the pink backpack on her back. They passed the same square from days before. Sarah glanced at the bench where they had sat. The memory of the kind man came to mind, but she pushed the thought away. People like that appeared once and vanished. That's how life worked. Mommy! Emma suddenly pulled her hand. Mommy, look! Sarah followed her daughter's gaze. Across the street, walking out of a coffee shop, there he was, the sandwich man. Emma didn't wait. She let go of Sarah's hand and ran before she could stop her. Emma! Sarah ran after her, her heart racing. Mister, Emma called out, waving with both hands. Ethan was looking at his phone when he heard the little voice. He looked up and saw the little blonde girl running toward him, her curls bouncing. Her mother followed behind, looking worried. He smiled without realizing it. Hi. Ethan knelt down when Emma got close, meeting her height. But you're the man from the other day, Emma said excitedly. The one who gave my mommy food. Sarah finally caught up to her daughter, breathless. Emma, you can't run off like that. She gently pulled the girl closer, then looked at Ethan. I'm sorry. She's enthusiastic. Ethan stood up, still smiling. It's all right. Hello again. Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, visibly embarrassed. Hi. You're the man from the other day. I am. He put his hands in his pockets, relaxed. Ethan. Sarah. She held out her hand, and he shook it. And this is Emma. Nice to meet you, Emma. Ethan looked at the girl, who was grinning from ear to ear. We ate it all, Emma announced. It was very yummy. That's good. Ethan chuckled softly. Sarah felt her cheeks warm up. I wanted to thank you again. You didn't have to do that. I know I didn't, Ethan replied calmly. But I wanted to. There was a brief silence, but it wasn't awkward. Sarah fiddled with her purse strap, not knowing what to say. Are you busy? Ethan asked, noticing the folder she was carrying. More or less. Sarah hesitated, dropping off some resumes around. Ah, Ethan nodded. Looking for a job? Yeah. It's been a while now. She gave a tired smile. But nothing yet. Emma tugged at the hem of Sarah's shirt. Mommy, my foot hurts. Sarah looked down, concerned. We'll be going home soon, sweetie. There's a bench there. Ethan pointed to a nearby bus stop. Want to sit down for a bit? Sarah was about to refuse, but Emma was already dragging herself toward the bench. I guess so, she sighed. They walked the few yards to the bus stop. Emma sat down and took off her sneaker, rubbing her little foot. Sarah knelt in front of her, checking for any injuries. Ethan stood beside them, not wanting to intrude on the moment, but he didn't leave. Is everything all right? He asked after a while. It's just tiredness, Sarah explained, putting Emma's sneaker back on. We walked a lot today. How many places did you go? Sarah thought. About 7, I think. But they always give the same answer. We'll contact you if anything comes up. And they never call. Never. She sat down on the bench next to her daughter. I dropped off resumes at restaurants, stores, even the grocery store. Anything would do. Ethan leaned against the pole, listening. How long have you been looking? Months, Sarah admitted, tiredly. I do some odd jobs when I can, cleaning, housework, stuff like that, but it's irregular. I never know when something will pop up. Emma leaned her head against her mother's arm, quiet now. That must be hard, Ethan said, and it wasn't just politeness, he truly meant it. It is, Sarah looked at the ground. I'm scared, you know, of not making it, of failing her. Her voice trembled at the end. Ethan saw that she was holding back her emotions tightly. You are not failing, he said firmly. Sarah looked up at him, surprised. Look at her. Ethan gently gestured toward Emma. She's well cared for, clean, happy. You are doing your best. Sarah blinked quickly, warding off tears. Sam, sometimes it doesn't feel like enough. But it is. Ethan sat down on the bench next to her, keeping a respectful distance. Believe me, it is. They sat in silence for a few seconds. The noise of the city center continued around them, but there seemed to be a bubble on that bench. Can I ask you something? Sarah looked at him, curious. Of course. Why did you help us that day? Ethan thought about his answer. Because I saw you needed it, and because... I don't know. I felt it was the right thing to do. Plenty of people see and do nothing. I know, he agreed. I used to be like that myself. Sarah tilted her head, interested. And what changed? Ethan gave a half smile. I guess I was tired of just existing, of going through the days without truly feeling anything. And helping us made you feel something. It did, he admitted. It made me feel like I had done something that mattered. Sarah looked at him for a moment. There was sincerity there. No ulterior motive, just honesty. Thank you, she said again. Really? You don't know how much that meant? I think I do, Ethan replied softly. Emma yawned loudly, drawing the attention of both of them. Tired, sweetie. Sarah stroked her daughter's hair a little. Sarah looked at the time on her phone and grimaced. We need to go, we have to catch the bus. She stood up, adjusting her bag and folder. Emma slowly got off the bench, still sleepy. Ethan stood up too. Sarah, he said before she walked away, if I can help you, in any way, I want to. Sarah stopped and looked at him. There was something different in the way he said that. It wasn't pity, it wasn't charity, it was genuine. You already helped, she said softly. No. I mean for real. Ethan took his phone out of his pocket. If you need anything at all, you can call me. Sarah hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. You're not, he interrupted gently. And you wouldn't be. I'm offering because I want to. She took his phone and typed his number. She saved it as Ethan, Sandwich Man. When she handed it back, he saw the name and smiled. Now you have my number too. He showed her the screen where Sarah appeared. She smiled shyly. Thank you. Again. You don't need to thank me so much. Ethan put his phone away. I'll see you around. It looks like it. Sarah held Emma's hand. Bye, Ethan. Bye, Sarah. Bye, Emma. Bye. Emma waved with renewed energy. They crossed the street and headed for the bus stop further ahead. Sarah looked back once and saw that Ethan was still there, watching to make sure they were safe. She felt something strange in her chest, hope, maybe. Or perhaps just the feeling that, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't completely alone. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about them. At the office, during meetings, signing papers, answering emails. The image of Sarah with that folder of resumes under her arm kept coming back to him. And Emma, tired, rubbing her little foot. He had money, he had resources, and for the first time in years, he genuinely wanted to use it to make a difference. But how could he help without seeming intrusive, without making Sarah feel inferior? He spent the rest of the day thinking about it. That night, at home, Ethan looked at the full refrigerator, at the organized pantry, at everything he had and rarely valued. That's when the idea came to him. The next day, he left work early. He stopped at the grocery store and filled 2 carts. Rice, beans, pasta, oil, sugar, coffee, fruits, vegetables, bread, basic things, necessary things. In the checkout line, his heart was racing. Was he overdoing it? Would she be offended? But he had already made up his mind. He loaded everything into the car and drove to the address Sarah had mentioned in passing during their conversation. She had commented on the neighborhood, and he had memorized it. It took him about 20 minutes to find the street. It was a simple area, small houses, some quite worn by time. He parked in front of the number he had noted. Ethan grabbed the bags from the trunk. There were 4 of them, all heavy. He walked to the door and took a deep breath before knocking. Inside the house, Sarah was in the kitchen trying to stretch dinner. Half an onion, 1 tomato, leftover rice from yesterday. Emma was in the living room drawing on the floor with old crayons. When the knock came at the door, Sarah frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. Emma, stay there. She wiped her hands on a cloth and went to the door. She opened it and froze. Ethan was standing there, holding 4 grocery bags. Hi, he said, a little awkwardly. Ethan? Sarah blinked, confused. What? How did you... You mentioned the neighborhood yesterday. I hope it's not weird that I came. He lifted the bags slightly. I just thought this might help. Sarah looked at the bags, then at his face. Her throat tightened. You didn't have to... I know, he interrupted gently, but I wanted to. She stood there for a few seconds, trying to process it. The words wouldn't come. Can I come in? Ethan asked gently. These bags are heavy. Sarah snapped out of her trance and opened the door completely. Of course, sorry, come in. Ethan stepped inside and quickly looked around. The house was small and simple, but clean, well cared for. There were flowers in a bottle on the table, and Emma's drawings taped to the fridge. Is the kitchen here? He asked. It is. Let me help you. Sarah tried to take a bag, but he was already walking. I got it, don't worry. Emma looked up when she saw the movement. Her eyes lit up. Mommy, it's the man. Yes, sweetie, Sarah replied, still a bit stunned. Ethan placed the bags on the kitchen counter and started taking things out. Sarah stood beside him, seeing rice, beans, pasta, cans of tomato sauce, crackers, fruit, milk, eggs. Every item that came out of the bag seemed to tighten the knot in her throat. Ethan, it's too much. Her voice trembled. It's the basics, he replied calmly, continuing to organize. Things everyone needs, but I can't accept all this. He stopped and looked at her. Why not? Because I can't pay you back. I'm not asking for payment, Ethan said firmly, but gently. Sarah, you need it. Let me help. She looked away, feeling the tears coming. She bit her lip, trying to control herself. I don't want to be charity. You're not. He turned completely toward her. This isn't charity. It's one person helping another, simple as that. Sarah blinked quickly, pushing away the tears that insisted on falling. She ran her hands over her face. I'm sorry, I'm not used to this. To what? To kindness without expecting anything in return. Ethan felt something tug at his chest. Then it's time to get used to it. She gave a wet laugh and finally looked at him again. Thank you, seriously. You don't know how much this means. I think I do. He smiled faintly. Emma appeared in the kitchen, curious. She looked at the groceries on the table and then at Ethan. Did you bring us food? I did. Ethan knelt down to her level. Do you like it? I do. Emma smiled wide. There are crackers. And there's fruit too. Your mum said you like apples. Emma looked at Sarah, surprised. How does he know? Because I pay attention. Ethan winked at her. Emma, without warning, stepped forward and hugged him. Her thin arms wrapped around his neck. Ethan was surprised for a second, but quickly returned the hug. Something in that simple gesture touched him deeply. Sarah watched the scene with teary eyes. Seeing her daughter hug someone with such confidence, so naturally, moved her. Emma pulled away and smiled. Thank you, mister. You're welcome, little one. Sarah cleared her throat, trying to regain her composure. Would you like to stay for dinner? She asked, a little shyly. It won't be anything special, but I'd love to, Ethan replied before she even finished. They spent the next half hour organizing the groceries. Ethan helped put everything away, following Sarah's instructions on where everything belonged. Emma jumped around, excited about the full pantry. The conversation flowed easily, without pressure, without judgment. Sarah talked about how she had learned to cook by herself when she was young. Ethan talked about how he rarely cooked, living on takeout and delivery. You need to learn, Sarah said, smiling as she put away the cans. Homemade food is something else. Then you'll have to teach me, he replied without thinking. Sarah stopped and looked at him. There was something different in the air now, something comfortable. Maybe I will teach you, she said softly. They finished putting everything away. The pantry, which had been almost empty before, now seemed full of possibilities. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching Sarah separate the ingredients for dinner. Can I ask you something? He said after a while. Of course. Why are you alone? I mean, Emma's father. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. It's a long story. I have time, Ethan said sincerely. She looked at Emma, who was back in the living room drawing. I will tell you, but not today. Sarah looked at him. Today was a good day. I want it to stay that way. Ethan nodded, respecting her space. All right, whenever you're ready. Sarah smiled, grateful. They ate dinner together. It was simple, pious, but tasty. Sarah had made rice, beans, and an omelette with the eggs Ethan brought. Emma ate excitedly, talking non-stop about the drawings she had made. Ethan listened to everything attentively. He asked questions. He laughed at the girls' silly jokes. Sarah watched, and something inside her calmed down. For the first time in a long time, that house felt truly alive. After dinner, Ethan helped with the dishes. Sarah tried to protest, but he insisted, You cooked. It's only fair I wash. You brought the groceries. So what? He smiled. Let me help, Sarah. She gave in, smiling too. When everything was clean, Ethan looked at the clock. I should probably go. It's late. Sarah walked him to the door. Emma came behind, holding one of the drawings. Take this. She held out the paper to Ethan. I made it for you. It was a drawing of 3 people holding hands, one tall, one medium, and one small. It's beautiful, Ethan said, touched. I'll keep it safe. Promise? I promise. Emma smiled, satisfied. Sarah opened the door. The night was cool and quiet. Thank you, Ethan, for everything. You don't need to thank me. He carefully put the drawing away. Can I come back another day? Sarah didn't expect the question, but the answer came naturally. You can. You're welcome here. Ethan smiled, relieved. Then I'll see you soon. See you soon. He walked to his car, waved one last time, and drove away. Sarah closed the door and leaned against it, smiling to herself. Emma tugged at her shirt. Mommy, I like him. Sarah looked down at her daughter and stroked her blonde hair. Me too, sweetie. Me too. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah went to sleep without the weight of desperation on her chest. A week after Ethan's visit with the groceries, Sarah made a decision. She was going to make a proper dinner. Nothing extravagant, but something made with care. It was the only way she had to repay everything he had done. She picked up her phone and sent a text. Ethan, are you free tonight? I'd like to make you dinner to say thank you. The reply came in less than a minute. I'd love to. What time? 7 o'clock. Perfect. Should I bring anything? Just yourself. Sarah put her phone away, smiling. Emma, who was playing on the couch, noticed. Mommy is happy. I am, sweetie. Ethan is coming for dinner tonight. Emma jumped off the couch. Really, he's coming here? He is. I'm going to make that chicken you like. With potatoes? With potatoes. Emma cheered, doing a little dance around the living room. Sarah laughed and headed to the kitchen to start the preparations. She didn't have much, but she knew how to cook well. She seasoned the chicken with garlic, lemons, and herbs, peeled the potatoes and cut them into chunks. Prepared a simple salad with what she had in the fridge. While cooking, Sarah realized she was humming softly. It had been a long time since that had happened. Emma appeared in the kitchen. Can I help? Can you set the table for me? Emma nodded seriously, as if she had been given an important mission. She took the plates and cutlery and started arranging them carefully. Sarah glanced at her daughter. She had been more cheerful in the past few days. Lighter. At 7 sharp, the doorbell rang. Emma raced to the door before Sarah could. Emma, wait for me to open it. Sarah rushed after her, wiping her hands on a cloth. She opened the door, and there was Ethan, jeans and a simple shirt, his hair still slightly damp, as if he had just showered. He was holding a bottle of grape juice. Hi, he smiled. I know you said not to bring anything, but it's fine. Sarah took the bottle. Come in. Ethan stepped inside, and the smell of food hit him immediately. Roasted chicken, spices, something homemade and genuine. Wow, he paused. That smells amazing. It's chicken, Emma announced proudly. Mommy made it. I bet it's delicious. Sarah motioned toward the table. Sit down. Everything is ready. They sat down. Sarah served the plates and put everything on the table. It wasn't fancy, but it was well made. Beautiful, even. Ethan picked up his fork and cut a piece of chicken. He put it in his mouth and stopped. He chewed slowly, his eyes closing for a second. Sarah watched nervously. Is it bad? Ethan opened his eyes and looked at her. It's perfect. Really? Seriously? He took another piece. It's been a long time since I had real food. Sarah tilted her head. What do you mean? Food made with love, Ethan explained. You know, the kind where you feel someone thought about every detail, that it was made for you. He looked at the plate again. Yeah, I haven't felt that in years. Sarah felt something tug at her chest. It wasn't pity, it was understanding. Don't you have family? She asked softly. I do, my parents, but we drifted apart a long time ago. He shrugged. I chose work. Always chose work. And now? Now I see that I missed out on a lot. Ethan looked at her. Moments like this, simple. Real. Emma, who had been eating quietly, decided to join the conversation. Do you like to draw? Ethan smiled at her. I'm not very good, but I like looking at drawings. I draw. Emma dropped her fork. Want to see? Emma, let Ethan eat. Sarah tried to control her. It's all right, Ethan said. You can show me after dinner. Deal. Deal. Emma went back to eating, satisfied. They continued dinner. The conversation flowed easily. Ethan asked about Sarah's day. She told him about an interview she had in the morning. He encouraged her, said he thought she would get it. When they finished, Sarah collected the plates. Ethan tried to help, but she refused. Tonight you're my guest. Just sit back and relax. Emma took the cue. Come on. She pulled Ethan's hand. I'll show you the drawings. Ethan let himself be dragged to the living room. Emma ran to her bedroom and came back with a pile of papers. This one is a butterfly, she showed him. And this is a dog. That's great, Ethan genuinely praised. And this one, Emma picked up another one, is me, Mommy, and you. Ethan looked at the drawing, 3 figures holding hands, just like the drawing she had given him before, but this one had more details. Sun in the sky, flowers on the ground. This one is special, he said softly. It's my favorite, Emma agreed. Sarah finished in the kitchen and came into the living room. She paused in the doorway, watching the scene. Emma was sitting on the floor, showing each drawing with enthusiasm. Ethan was kneeling beside her, paying attention to every detail, asking questions, complimenting her. It wasn't forced. It wasn't empty politeness. It was genuine. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, feeling something different in her chest. Security. For the first time in years, she felt that she wasn't carrying everything alone, that maybe, just maybe, there was someone who truly cared. Mommy, Emma called. Come see! Sarah walked over and sat on the couch. Ethan sat down beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Emma continued showing her drawings. She explained each one seriously, as if they were important works of art, and Ethan treated them like they were. You have a lot of talent, Emma, he said, after seeing all of them. Thank you, Emma smiled. Can you draw with me someday? I can, Ethan promised, but you'll have to teach me. I'm a terrible drawer. Emma laughed, amused. It's all right, I'll teach you. Sarah watched the interaction with a smile on her face. Seeing her daughter so comfortable, so happy, was a rare sight. Ethan looked at Sarah and their eyes met. There was a moment of silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable, it was understanding. Emma yawned loudly, breaking the moment. Someone's sleepy, Sarah said softly. I'm not, Emma protested, but yawned again. I think so, Ethan smiled. And I really need to go. Emma pouted. Already, but I'll be back. He looked at Sarah as if asking permission. You can come back whenever you want, she replied sincerely. Ethan stood up. Emma hugged him quickly before going to her room, taking her drawings. Sarah walked Ethan to the door. Thank you for dinner, he said. It was special. Thank you for coming. Ethan hesitated, as if he wanted to say something more, but he just smiled. See you soon, Sarah. See you soon, Ethan. She closed the door and leaned against it for a moment. The house was quiet now, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like home. Sarah went to Emma's room. The girl was already lying down, hugging her old teddy bear. Mommy. Yes, my love. I like it when Ethan comes here. Sarah pulled up the blanket and covered her daughter. Me too. He's nice. He is. Emma closed her eyes, already almost asleep. So can he be our friend forever? Sarah felt her eyes sting, but she smiled. "I think so, my love, I think so." She kissed Emma's forehead and turned off the light. In the dark of the room, Sarah stood for a few seconds watching her daughter sleep. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that things could get better. That perhaps they weren't alone anymore. Ethan's visits began to become part of the routine. First it was once a week, then twice, then 3 times. He always called ahead, asking if he could drop by. Sarah always said yes. On a Tuesday, he showed up with fresh bread and butter. "I was thinking of you both on the way," he said at the door. On a Thursday, he brought children's books he had bought. "I saw them in a bookstore and thought of Emma." The following Saturday, he arrived with simple flowers to brighten the house. Sarah didn't know how to react to so much kindness. Every time he showed up with something, she tried to protest, but Ethan always had a simple answer. "God, it's just because I wanted to." And it was true. There was no expectation, no demands, just a genuine desire to help. Emma started waiting for him. Every afternoon, after 3 o'clock, she would look out the window. "Mommy, I think Ethan is coming today." "I don't know, sweetie. He didn't call, but I feel like he is." And when he showed up, Emma opened the door before he even knocked, grinning from ear to ear. "I knew it." Ethan always knelt down to hug her, and Emma threw herself into his arms with complete trust. Sarah watched these scenes from the kitchen, and something inside her warmed up. On one of the visits, Ethan came in and tossed his work briefcase onto the couch. He was visibly tired. "Tough day?" Sarah asked, bringing him a glass of water. It was long. He accepted the water and drank it, but it's better now. "Why?" "Because I'm here." Sarah felt her cheeks warm up and looked away. Emma tugged at Ethan's hand. "Can I come play with me?" "Emma, Ethan just arrived." Sarah tried to control her. "It's all right," Ethan smiled. "What do you want to play?" "House." And he went. He sat on the living room floor and played house with Emma for half an hour. He made funny voices for the dolls, invented stories, and laughed at her silly jokes. Sarah finished tidying the kitchen and just watched. That man, who worked in important meetings and had a busy life, was there on the floor playing with her daughter, and he seemed happy doing it. With time, Ethan began to be part of the simple moments. Dinners became frequent. He helped set the table, washed the dishes and dried them while Sarah put them away. "You don't have to do that," she would say every time. "I know," he would reply, "but I want to." After dinner, they would talk. Sarah would tell him about the interviews she had, the temporary jobs she managed to find. Ethan would listen attentively, encourage her and offer ideas when she asked. "You'll get a stable job soon," he would say with conviction. "How do you know?" "Because you're hardworking, dedicated. Any place would be lucky to have you." Sarah shook her head, but she kept those words in her heart. One night, while Sarah was preparing dinner, Ethan was helping Emma with her homework at the living room table. Emma had a handwriting notebook and was trying to write the letters. "Just this R is hard," she complained. "It is a little," Ethan agreed, "but look, you do it like this." He took her little hand and guided it. Slowly, Emma tried again. It was better. "I did it." "You did," Ethan clapped softly. "Want to try the next one?" They continued. Ethan was patient, teaching calmly, praising every small step forward. Sarah dried her hands and went to the living room. She stood in the doorway, just watching. Seeing Ethan teaching her daughter, with such dedication, with such affection, made her eyes water. Emma had never had that. She had never had someone who would sit with her, who had patience, who truly cared about what she was learning. Ethan looked up and saw Sarah standing there, her eyes shining. "Is everything all right?" he asked softly. Sarah cleared her throat and nodded. "Everything is fine. Just... thank you." "For what?" "For doing this," she gestured toward Emma, "for having patience with her." "It's not patience." Ethan looked at Emma with a smile. It's a pleasure. She's smart. Emma smiled proudly. Ethan said I'm smart, Mommy. You are indeed, my love. After that, it became routine. Every time Ethan visited, he would help Emma with her homework. Letters, numbers, reading. He bought simple little books and read with her, teaching new words. Sarah watched, always moved. On one of those nights, after Emma went to sleep, Sarah and Ethan sat on the couch. The house was quiet, only the soft sound of the street outside. Ethan, Sarah began, her voice low. Can I tell you something? Of course. She nervously played with her hands. I didn't have a chance to study. I left school early. I had to work. She looked at the floor. Sometimes I don't know how to help her with her homework, and that hurts me. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Sarah, look at me. She raised her eyes. You raised your daughter alone, he said firmly. That's huge. You work, you take care of her, you make her feel loved and safe. That's worth more than any homework. But but... He interrupted gently. You are giving your best, and your best is incredible. Sarah felt the tears coming. She had carried that guilt for so long, thinking she wasn't enough, that she was failing her daughter. Hearing those words from Ethan eased something inside her. Thank you, she whispered. You don't have to thank me. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. What about you? Sarah looked at him. Why do you do all this? All what? Come here. Help us. Bring things. Spend time with Emma. Ethan thought about his answer. Because for the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. He looked at her. I spent so much time focused on work, on saving money, on climbing the career ladder. And for what? At the end of the day, I went back to an empty house. He paused, choosing his words. You reminded me of what's truly important. Sarah felt her chest tighten. We're nothing special. You are, Ethan interrupted her. You are exactly what I needed to find. Their eyes met. There was something different in the air now, something deeper. Sarah looked away first, nervous about the intensity of the moment. It's late, she said softly. You must be tired. Ethan looked at the clock and nodded. Yeah, I should probably go. They stood up. Sarah walked him to the door. Ethan, yes. Can you come tomorrow too? He smiled. I can. Of course I can. Emma will be happy. And you? Sarah looked at him, surprised by the question. Me too, she admitted softly. Ethan smiled wider. Then, until tomorrow. Until tomorrow. He left and Sarah closed the door. She leaned against it, taking a deep breath. Something was changing. She felt it. It wasn't just friendship, it wasn't just gratitude. It was something more, and for the first time, it wasn't scary. In the following days, Ethan's presence became even more constant. He stopped by almost every day after work. Sometimes he only stayed for half an hour. Other times he stayed until Emma went to sleep. Emma began to call out for him without thinking. Ethan, come see. Ethan, I managed to write my name. Ethan, stay a little longer. Sarah saw the bond between the two of them grow and felt a mix of joy and fear. Joy because Emma finally had a figure who cared about her. Fear that one day he might leave. But Ethan showed no signs of going anywhere. He was there on the good days and the difficult ones. When Sarah got a temporary job, he celebrated with her. When she came home frustrated from another unsuccessful interview, he encouraged her to keep trying. It will work out, he would always say. It just takes time. And she started to believe it. One Friday, Ethan arrived later than usual. Sarah and Emma had already eaten dinner. Sorry, he said at the door. Meeting that just wouldn't end. It's all right, Sarah smiled. I saved you a plate. Seriously? Of course. Did you think I would let you go without eating? Something in the way she said that made Ethan stop. It was natural, as if he belonged there. as if it were expected that she would save food for him, like family does. He came in and ate while Emma showed him her new drawings. Then he helped her brush her teeth and put on her pajamas. Sarah watched from the bedroom doorway, her heart full of emotion. "Tell a story," Emma asked, already tucked in. "Which one do you want?" Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. "The one about the princess and the dragon. Again, it's the best one." Ethan chuckled and started telling the story. Sarah leaned against the door frame, listening. He invented different voices for each character. Emma laughed, asked questions, and interrupted with her own ideas. By the time the story finished, Emma's eyes were closing. "Good night, little one," Ethan said softly. "Good night, Ethan," Emma mumbled sleepily. "I love you." Ethan froze. Sarah did too. Those were the first words of that kind Emma had said to anyone other than her mother. Ethan looked at the girl, already almost asleep, and felt something break inside him. In a good way. "I love you too, Emma," he replied softly. He stood up and left the room with Sarah. She closed the door slowly. In the living room, Ethan stood still for a moment, processing. "She had never said that to anyone," Sarah said softly. "Only to me." Ethan looked at her. "She trusts you," Sarah continued. "Completely." "I won't let her down," he said firmly. "I know." They sat down on the couch. The silence was comfortable now, familiar. "Sarah," Ethan began after a while, "I had never used what I have to do good for someone." She looked at him, curious. "I had money, I had resources, I had time," he continued. "But I used it all just for myself, to save more, to grow more, to get more." He looked at his hands. "Samus, you woke that up in me." He looked up at her. "You showed me that I could make a difference, that I could be important to someone for real." Sarah felt the tears coming. "You are important to us, Ethan, very much." "And you are important to me," he replied. "More than I thought possible." They looked at each other. The air was charged with something unspoken. Sarah looked away first, wiping her tears. "Do you want some coffee?" she offered, needing to break the intensity. "I do," Ethan smiled. She stood up and went to the kitchen. Ethan followed her, leaning against the doorway. "Can I ask you a question?" he said while she prepared the coffee. "Sure." "How do you do it?" "Do what?" "Be so strong. Carry everything alone and still be so incredible." Sarah stopped what she was doing and looked at him. "I'm not strong. You are." "I cry in secret," she admitted. "I'm scared all the time. I wake up in the middle of the night wondering if I'll be able to pay the rent next month." "And yet you don't give up," Ethan said softly. "That is strength, Sarah." She held onto the edge of the counter, trying to control her emotions. "I can't give up. I have her." Sarah looked toward the bedroom. "And now I have you too." Ethan approached slowly. "You always will have me." Sarah looked at him, her eyes shining. "I promise. I promise." And in that moment, in the simple kitchen of that small house, they both understood that something had changed. They weren't just friends anymore. They were family. Sarah woke up to a strange noise. It was 2 in the morning. She stayed still for a second, trying to identify the sound. Then she heard it again. Emma crying. Sarah jumped out of bed and ran to her daughter's room. She turned on the light and saw Emma tangled in the sheet, her face red and wet with sweat. "My love!" Sarah rushed over. "Mommy!" Emma's voice was weak. "I'm hot." Sarah put her hand on her daughter's forehead and felt her heart race. She was burning up. "It's all right, sweetie. Mommy will take care of you." She tried to sound calm, but panic was already rising. She ran to the bathroom and grabbed the thermometer. She put it under Emma's armpit and waited the longest seconds of her life. When the thermometer beeped, Sarah looked at the number and froze. 103.6 kilograms, 39.8 degrees. "No, no, no," she whispered. Emma started crying louder. "Mommy, I don't feel good." Sarah picked up her daughter and carried her to the living room. She put her on the couch and ran to get a wet towel. Her hands were trembling so much that she could barely wring out the cloth. She came back and placed the towel on Emma's forehead. The girl was shaking now, her lips purplish. "Mommy? I'm here." Sarah tried to control her voice, but she was in a panic, pure panic. She picked up her phone with trembling hands. She thought about calling the emergency number, but would they come? How long would it take? Emma needed help now. Without thinking straight, Sarah opened WhatsApp and typed to Ethan. "Ethan, Emma has a very high fever. I don't know what to do. Please help me." She pressed send and stared at the screen. 2 in the morning. He must be asleep. What if he didn't see the message? 3 seconds later, the phone vibrated. "I'm on my way. Hold tight. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Sarah felt the tears fall. She went back to Emma and kept passing the wet towel. The girl was quieter now, but her body still burned. "Ethan is coming, sweetie. He's going to help us." Emma could barely keep her eyes open. The 10 minutes felt like an eternity. Sarah paced back and forth, looking out the window, checking on Emma, checking her phone. When she finally saw the car headlights in front of the house, she almost collapsed with relief. She ran to open the door before Ethan even knocked. He was in a sweatshirt and sneakers, his hair messy. He had gotten out of bed and come straight over. "Where is she?" He rushed in. "On the couch." Ethan went to Emma and knelt down. He placed his hand on her forehead. "How high is the fever?" "Almost 104. We're going to the hospital." "Now." Sarah nodded, grabbing her bag with still trembling hands. Ethan carefully picked up Emma. The girl rested her head on his shoulder, too weak to protest. "It's all right, little one. We'll take care of you." They rushed downstairs. Ethan put Emma in the back seat and Sarah got in beside her, holding her daughter in her lap. He started the car and drove quickly. "Tell which hospital is closest?" he asked. "St. Luke's. Turn right at the traffic light." Ethan drove fast, but carefully. He checked the rearview mirror every few seconds, checking on Emma. Sarah cradled her daughter, whispering words of comfort, even though her voice was shaking. They arrived at the hospital in less than 5 minutes. Ethan parked in front of the emergency room and picked up Emma again. Sarah ran ahead, opening the doors. "My daughter has a very high fever," she shouted to the receptionist. A nurse appeared quickly with a wheelchair. "What's the temperature?" "Almost 104, Sarah replied. "Come with me." Ethan put Emma in the chair and they followed the nurse to an examination room. The next few minutes were a blur. They checked her fever again, took her temperature, asked questions, gave her fever reducer. Sarah answered everything, but she was visibly in shock. Her hands were shaking, her voice was failing. Ethan stayed by her side the whole time. When they needed information she couldn't give, he helped. When she forgot the name of a medicine Emma had taken before, he calmed her down. "Breathe. Slowly. You know this." And she would remember. After a while, the doctor came out. The fever was caused by a viral infection. Nothing serious, but she needs medication. She'll be under observation for a few hours. Sarah almost collapsed with relief. She'll be okay. She will. She just needs to rest and take the medicine correctly. Sarah covered her face with her hands, finally letting the tears fall. Ethan placed his hand on her back, a simple gesture of support. "It's all right. She'll be fine." They were taken to an observation room. Emma was lying on a small gurney, still asleep due to tiredness and medication. Sarah sat in the chair next to the bed and held her daughter's small hand. Ethan stood beside them. "I'm going to get some water," he said softly. He returned a few minutes later with 2 bottles and a coffee. "Here," he offered the coffee to Sarah. "Here, so you need this." She accepted with still trembling hands. Ethan sat in the other chair. They stayed there, in silence, just watching Emma sleep. The hours passed slowly. Ethan didn't leave. When Sarah started shaking from the cold air conditioning, He took off his own sweatshirt and placed it over her shoulders. "You'll be cold," she weakly protested. "I'm fine." When Sarah started dozing off from exhaustion, he stayed awake, watching Emma, checking if she was breathing well, calling the nurse when the fever rose slightly again. Around 5 in the morning, Emma woke up. "Mommy!" Her little voice was hoarse. Sarah woke up instantly. "I'm here, my love." Emma looked around, confused. "Jice, where are we?" "In the hospital. But you're better now." Emma saw Ethan sitting on the other side. "You came too." "I did." He smiled tiredly. "I wasn't going to leave you two alone." Emma reached out her small hand to him. Ethan held it gently. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome, little one." Sarah looked at Ethan. He had been there since 2 in the morning. He hadn't slept. He hadn't complained. He hadn't left for a single minute. And in that moment, she understood. He wasn't going to disappear. He wasn't just there for the good times. He was there when it was difficult, when it was scary, when it was late at night and inconvenient. He was there because he truly cared. "Ethan," she called softly. He looked at her. "Thank you for everything. You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." Sarah felt her eyes fill up again. "You were here in 10 minutes. In the middle of the night. You—" Her voice failed. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "I'll always be here. You can count on me." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Emma fell back asleep, now more peaceful. Ethan and Sarah stayed there, sitting in silence. But it was a different kind of silence now. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It wasn't just gratitude anymore. It was something much deeper. It was trust. It was certainty. It was knowing that no matter what happened, they had each other. And when the sun began to rise outside, illuminating the observation room window, Sarah looked at Ethan and knew he was a part of them now, and nothing was going to change that. A week after the hospital scare, Emma was fully recovered. Her energy had returned, her smiles too. On a Saturday afternoon, she was sitting at the table drawing when she suddenly stopped. "Mommy!" Sarah was folding laundry on the couch. "Yes, sweetie. Can I eat those little treats you make?" Sarah looked at her daughter. "Which treats?" "The chocolate and cream cheese ones you made for my birthday." Sarah smiled. "Brownies?" "Yes." Emma clapped her hands. "Today." "Please." Emma gave her the look that always worked. Sarah pretended to think. "Okay, but you have to help me." "I will help." They went to the kitchen. Sarah gathered the ingredients while Emma dragged the stool to reach the counter. "First, we melt the chocolate," Sarah explained, placing the bars in a double boiler. Emma watched everything attentively, as if it were magic. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it." Emma jumped off the stool and ran. It was Ethan. He had started dropping by unannounced sometimes, and Sarah didn't mind. In fact, she liked it. "Hi!" Emma hugged him. "Hi, little one." He picked her up. "What are you two making?" "Sweets." "Really?" Emma pulled his hand toward the kitchen. Ethan walked in and saw Sarah with her hands covered in flour, her apron stained, her hair tied back carelessly. She looked beautiful. "Hi," Sarah smiled, a little embarrassed. "Sorry for the mess." "What mess?" He walked closer. "What are you making?" "Brownies," Emma announced proudly. "Brownies." Ethan looked at the pan on the counter. "It looks professional." "It's just something simple." Sarah turned to check the oven. "Can I taste it when it's ready?" "Of course." Ethan stayed in the kitchen talking while Sarah finished up. Emma showed him every step, as if she were the head chef of the process. When the brownies finally came out of the oven, the smell filled the house. Rich, sweet, comforting chocolate. Ethan closed his eyes. This should be illegal. Sarah laughed and cut a piece after it had cooled slightly. She put it on a small plate and handed it to him. "Careful, it's still warm." Ethan took a fork and cut a piece. He put it in his mouth and stopped. He chewed slowly. His eyes widened. Sarah, don't you like it? She asked worriedly. I don't like it. He looked straight at her. I love it. This is special. It's truly special. Sarah felt her cheeks warm up. It's just a brownie. It's not just a brownie. Ethan took another piece. So it's the best brownie I've ever had in my life. You're exaggerating. I'm not. He looked at her seriously. Sarah, this is professional level. Even better. Emma ate hers happily, licking her fingers. I told you Mommy makes good food. Sarah shook her head shyly. It's just something I've done since I was little. I taught myself. Yourself? Ethan was impressed. No one taught you? No, I just tried, tested recipes, saw what worked. Ethan looked at her for a moment. There was something there, something big. Have you ever thought about selling this? Sarah laughed. Selling? To who? To anyone, he gestured. This is serious, Sarah. People would pay good money for something like this. I know expensive bakeries downtown that don't make anything as good as this, Ethan continued. You have talent, a lot of talent. Sarah didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken like that about something she made. You're just being nice. I'm not, he finished the brownie. I'm being honest. The idea stuck in his head. For the rest of the afternoon, while they played with Emma, while they ate dinner, while they talked, Ethan thought Sarah had a gift. A real gift, and she didn't even know it. Later, after Emma went to sleep, Sarah and Ethan sat in the living room. She was quieter than usual. Is everything all right? Ethan asked. Sarah nervously played with her hands. There's something I need to tell you. Her tone made Ethan sit up straight. What is it? About the past. About Emma's father. Ethan stayed quiet, letting her speak at her own pace. Sarah took a deep breath. I never told this to anyone. But you? How you deserve to know. Only if you want to tell me. I want to. She looked at her hands. I need to. There was a silence. Then Sarah began. I was 23 when I met him. I was different, more naive, more foolish. She gave a sad smile. I thought he was perfect, attentive, caring. Ethan just listened. In the beginning, everything was good. But then things started to change. Her voice dropped lower. He wanted to know where I was all the time, who I was with, what I was doing. Control, Ethan said softly. Yes, but I didn't see it that way at the time. I thought it was because he cared. Sarah shook her head. How foolish I was. You weren't foolish. I was, she insisted. Because even when the insane jealousy started, the baseless accusations, I stayed. I believed him when he said it was my fault. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Did he hurt you? Not physically, but words. Words hurt just as much. Sarah wiped away a tear that started to fall. He would say I was worthless, that I was stupid, that no one else would ever want me, that I should be lucky he was with me. Sarah. And I believed it, Ethan. Her voice broke. I believed everything. I thought he was right, that I really wasn't worth anything. Ethan wanted to say something, but he knew she needed to finish. I didn't have any friends anymore. I didn't have anything that was mine, only him. And the life he controlled? Sarah took a deep breath. Then I found out I was pregnant. She paused, wiping away more tears. And I knew that if I told him, it would be the end. Not the end of the relationship, the end of me, of the baby, of everything. He never knew. Never, Sarah confirmed. I ran away before he realized. I grabbed a backpack, put the little I had, and left in the middle of the night. Ethan imagined the scene, a young woman, pregnant, running away in fear. I came to this city because it was far away, because I didn't know anyone, because I thought he wouldn't find me. She looked at Ethan. I was 24, pregnant, and I had nothing. No support, no family. Nothing. How did you manage? I don't know, Sarah admitted. I worked any job I could find. I lived in terrible places. I went hungry, but I had to protect her. Emma, Sarah smiled faintly. When she was born, I looked at that little face and thought, I did it. I saved her. There was a silence. Then Sarah continued, and her voice dropped even lower. But there was a moment. There was a moment when I almost couldn't make it. Ethan looked at her. She was about 2 months old. I was broken. Financially, emotionally, physically. Sarah wiped her face with her hands. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I just cried. The tears were falling freely now. Then I thought about giving her up for adoption. I thought maybe she would have a better life with someone else, someone who could give her the things I couldn't. Her voice broke completely. I spent the whole night holding her, crying, thinking about it, looking at that little baby sleeping peacefully, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't let go of her. Sarah covered her face, sobbing. She is my life, Ethan. She is everything I have, everything that matters, and I failed her so many times. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He reached out and pulled Sarah into a hug. She broke down. She cried out everything she had held inside for years, all the fear, all the pain, all the loneliness. Ethan held her tightly, stroking her back, letting her release everything. You did not fail, he said when she calmed down a little. Did you hear me? You did not fail. Sarah was still sobbing. You ran away to protect your daughter. You worked every job to feed her. You endured everything alone. Ethan gently pulled Sarah back to look her in the eyes. John, you are the strongest woman I have ever met. I'm not strong, Sarah shook her head. Yes, you are. You are the definition of strength. He wiped the tears from her face with his thumbs. And Emma is so lucky to have you as a mother. Sarah let out another sob. I was so afraid to tell you this, that you would see me differently. I do see you differently, Ethan admitted. Sarah looked at him, scared. I see you as someone even more incredible than I already thought, he completed. You survived. You protected your daughter. You built a life from scratch. That is truly admirable. Sarah didn't know what to say. She had kept that secret for so long. She was ashamed, afraid of being judged, but Ethan didn't judge her. He just hugged her again. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. For what? For listening, for staying, for not leaving. I'm never leaving, Sarah, Ethan said firmly. Never. They stayed like that for a while, Sarah calming down, Ethan just holding her. When she finally pulled away, she wiped her face and gave a wet laugh. I must look awful. You look beautiful, Ethan said sincerely. Sarah looked at him. There was something different in his eyes now, something deeper. Ethan, I know it's not the right time, he interrupted softly, but I need you to know, you and Emma, you changed my life. Completely. Sarah felt her heart race. You changed ours too. They looked at each other. The air was charged, but neither of them moved. It wasn't time yet. Do you want some tea? Sarah asked, needing to break the tension. I do. She stood up and went to the kitchen. Ethan followed her. While the water was boiling, they talked about lighter things. But there was a new intimacy now. Sarah had opened up completely, and Ethan had stayed. When he left, it was well past midnight. At the door, he held her hand for a moment. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for being you. Ethan smiled and walked away. Sarah closed the door and leaned against it. For the first time in her life, she no longer felt alone carrying the weight of the past. She had someone by her side now, and that changed everything. 2 weeks after the conversation about the past, something had changed between Sarah and Ethan. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It wasn't just gratitude. It was deep trust. It was certainty. It was knowing that the other person would always be there. Ethan kept visiting every day, And every time he came, he would watch Sarah in the kitchen. The way she cooked was special. Every movement was careful. Every recipe was made with attention, and everything she prepared was perfect. On a Thursday afternoon, Sarah was making cupcakes. Fema had asked to take some to school the next day. Ethan was sitting at the table, working on his laptop, but sometimes he would stop and just watch. Sarah separated the ingredients. She measured everything precisely, mixed the batter with gentle movements, filled the cupcake liners carefully. "Done," she announced, placing the pan in the oven. "Shy 20 minutes. She turned around and caught Ethan looking at her. "What?" she smiled, adjusting her hair. "Nothing. Just, you're good at that. It's just cupcakes." "It's not." Ethan closed his laptop. "It's more than that." Sarah wiped her hands on her apron and sat down at the table with him. "So you're acting strange today." "I'm thinking, about what?" Ethan took a deep breath. He had thought a lot in the last few days. He had done calculations. He had planned. And now he was certain. "Sarah, have you seriously considered how good your sweets are?" She shrugged. "You've already said so." "But have you thought about what that means?" He leaned forward. "You have a real talent. It's not common, it's special." Sarah was quiet, not knowing where he was going with this. "I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" Ethan held her gaze. "I want to invest in you." Sarah blinked, confused. "Invest?" "Yes. Open a bakery, a real business. Professional," he said with conviction. "You doing what you love? What you're truly good at?" Sarah stood still for a few seconds, processing on, "Are you serious?" "Completely serious." "Ethan, I don't know anything about business. I didn't even finish school." "You don't need to know about business. You need to know how to make sweets. And you do know that," he continued. "I'll take care of the administrative side. You take care of the creation." Sarah shook her head, fear rushing in quickly. It's too big. I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because..." She stood up, nervous. "What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? You'll lose money. You'll regret helping." Ethan stood up too and walked over to her. "Sarah, look at me." She looked up, her eyes already shining. "What if it doesn't work?" she repeated, her voice trembling. "What if I mess everything up? If no one buys? If I disappoint you?" Ethan took her hands gently. "You are the best investment I could ever make." "I know." He squeezed her hands gently. "I watched you raise your daughter alone. I watched you work every job to give her the best. I watched you survive when everything was against you." Sarah felt the tears coming. "If anyone knows what it means not to give up, it's you," Ethan continued, "and I believe in you, more than you believe in yourself." "But what if it goes wrong?" "If it goes wrong, we'll try again," he replied firmly. "If you get scared, I'll stay. If you need help, I'm here." "I'm not leaving, Sarah. No matter what happens." The tears began to fall. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because you deserve it," he said simply. "You deserve to have something of your own, something you built, something no one can take away from you." Sarah covered her mouth, trying to control her sobs. "I'm so scared." "I know. But you don't have to be scared alone." Ethan pulled her into a hug. "I'm here. We'll do this together." Sarah collapsed into his embrace. But this time, it wasn't just sadness. It wasn't just relief. It was hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could have something more, something better. "I don't know how to do this," she said against his chest. "You learned to do everything alone up until now. This won't be any different. And this time you're not alone." She pulled away, wiping her face. "Do you really believe it can work?" "I do." Ethan looked into her eyes. "I believe in you, Sarah. You just need to start believing too." Sarah looked at his hands still holding hers. Then she looked at the kitchen around her, at the cupcakes baking in the oven, at everything she had done so far. Maybe he was right. Maybe she could do it. I'm going to need a lot of help, she finally said. Ethan smiled. You'll have it. What if I don't know how to deal with customers, with sales? We'll figure it out together. What if the sweets aren't good enough? They're already good enough. They're better than enough. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Are you sure about this? Absolutely. She looked at him, at that man who had appeared out of nowhere and changed everything, who had stayed when anyone else would have walked away, who believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. Okay, she said softly. Okay, Sarah repeated more firmly. I'll try. Ethan smiled wide and pulled her into another hug, lifting her off the ground. You won't regret it, I promise. Sarah laughed through her tears. I hope not. The oven timer beeped. The cupcakes were ready. Sarah broke away from the hug and went to take the pan out. The cupcakes had risen perfectly, golden brown, smelling wonderful. Look at that, Ethan pointed. Perfect, as always. Sarah looked at the cupcakes, then at Ethan, then at the kitchen that had been her sanctuary for so long, and for the first time, she saw possibility. It wasn't just survival anymore, it was creation. It was future. When do we start? She asked. Whenever you want. Sarah thought for a moment. Tomorrow? Ethan laughed. Tomorrow is perfect. Emma came running from the living room, smelling the cupcakes. It's ready. It is, Sarah smiled, picking up her daughter. And guess what else? What? Mommy is going to open a bakery. Emma's eyes widened. Oh, for real? For real? With Ethan? With Ethan? Emma hugged both of them at the same time, screaming with joy. Ethan looked at Sarah over Emma's head. She looked back, and in that moment, they both knew. It wasn't just about the bakery. It was about the three of them. It was about family. It was about starting over. And it was about believing that good things could happen, even after so much pain. Sarah was still afraid, very afraid, but for the first time in her life, she also had hope, and someone by her side to share both. The following days were a whirlwind. Sarah turned her home kitchen into a testing lab. The table was always covered with notebooks full of notes, scribbled recipes and lists of ingredients. She woke up early and started right away. She tested batters, fillings, and toppings. She changed temperatures, quantities, and baking times. Ethan tasted everything. This one, he pointed to a carrot cake with cream cheese frosting. This has to be on the menu. Do you think so? Isn't it too simple? It's perfect. Simple is good. People like what tastes good, not what's complicated. Sarah wrote everything down, every comment he made, every suggestion. Emma became the official assistant. Sarah had bought a mini pink apron for her, and the girl wore it proudly. Can I mix? Emma would ask every time. Mix slowly. Sarah guided her. That's it, just like that. Emma took the task seriously. She carefully sifted flour, cracked eggs, sometimes successfully into the bowl, and licked the spoons when no one was looking. You're going to be my head chef, Sarah joked. I will, Emma agreed excitedly. After 2 weeks of testing, they had a solid menu. Brownies, cupcakes in various flavors, homemade cakes, pies, cookies, and sweetbreads. Now we need a place, Ethan said one night. How do we find one? We look. And that's what they did. In the following days, they visited 5 different locations. The first was too small. The second was in an area with no foot traffic. The third had a rent that was too high. The fourth had plumbing problems. Sarah started to get discouraged. Maybe it's a sign, she said in the car after the 5th visit. It's a sign that we haven't found the right place yet, Ethan replied. That's all. The following Saturday, the realtor called. I have one more spot. I think you'll like it. The 3 of them went. Emma was in the back seat, humming. The location was on a charming street, with other small shops and a good flow of people. It had a large storefront window and perfect internal space. When they walked in, Sarah stopped. The light poured in through the windows. The ceiling was high. There was space for a counter, for tables, and for a kitchen in the back. "What do you think?" Ethan asked. Sarah walked slowly through the empty space. She touched the wall, looked at the storefront. She imagined how everything would be set up. "It feels real," she said softly, her eyes shining. Ethan approached and smiled. "Because it is." Sarah looked at him. Then at Emma, who was already running around the space, imagining where things would go. "This is it," she said. "This is the place." Ethan signed the lease the next day. And then the real work began. In the first few days, they cleaned everything. They removed what was old, organized the space, and measured every corner. "What color should we paint?" Sarah asked, looking at the empty walls. "You decide." "Me?" "It's your place," Sarah thought. She wanted something that conveyed comfort, warmth, home, light beige on the walls, and a subtle green feature wall behind the counter. Perfect. They bought the paint and started painting that weekend. Ethan on one side, Sarah on the other, Emma helping to paint the lower corners with a small brush. "It's getting pretty," Emma said every hour, and it was. It took 3 days to finish. When they were done, they were all covered in paint, in their hair, on their clothes, even on their faces. Sarah laughed when she saw Ethan with a green smudge on his cheek. "You've got paint on you." "So do you." He pointed to her nose. Emma giggled, showing her own hands covered in paint. With the walls ready, the counters arrived. Ethan had custom ordered them. Light wood, beautiful finish, space to display the sweets. When they were installed, Sarah ran her hand over them, admiring them. "It looks beautiful." "It does," Ethan agreed. They bought tables and chairs, nothing fancy but comfortable, the kind of place where people would want to sit and stay. Sarah chose the decor, simple pictures on the walls, vases with plants, pendant lights over the counter. Everything had her touch. "It has to feel like you're walking into my home," she explained. "It's perfect this way." The menu was handwritten. Sarah wrote each item in neat handwriting, and Ethan had them printed on nice boards to hang behind the counter. Emma helped choose the drawing for the logo, a simple, smiling cupcake. "This one," she pointed excitedly, and that was the one that became the face of the bakery. 2 weeks later, everything was ready. Sarah stood in the doorway, looking at everything. The painted walls, the gleaming counters, the arranged tables, the hanging menu, the smell of paint still lingering, but soon to be replaced by the smell of sweets. "We did it," she whispered. Ethan was standing beside her. "You did it." "We did," she corrected, looking at him. "Oh, we did it." The grand opening was scheduled for a Saturday. Sarah spent the entire Friday preparing. She baked brownies, cupcakes, and cookies. She made cakes. She prepared pies. She filled the counter shelves with everything she had tested. Emma helped put each sweet in the display, organizing everything carefully. "Ah, Mommy, everything is so beautiful." "It is." On Saturday morning, Sarah woke up nervous, her stomach churning, her hands sweating. "What if no one comes?" she asked Ethan as they got ready. "They will, you'll see." They opened the doors at 9 in the morning. For the first 10 minutes, no one came in. Sarah stood behind the counter, her heart pounding. "Maybe it's too early," Ethan tried to reassure her. But then the door opened. An elderly woman walked in, curious. She looked around, saw the sweets in the display. "What a charming place," she commented. "Did you just open?" "Today," Sarah replied, her voice slightly shaky. "Can I try a brownie?" "Of course." The lady tasted it. She closed her eyes. She smiled. "Oh my goodness, this is wonderful. I'll take 4. Sarah wrapped the brownies with still trembling hands. The lady left happy, and she apparently told other people, because 20 minutes later, there was a small line at the door. The bakery started filling up. People came in, looked, tasted, and bought. The compliments came one after another. "By best cupcake I've ever had." "This cake is incredible. We'll be back next week." Sarah barely had time to breathe. She took orders, wrapped sweets, and thanked every customer. Emma was radiant. She had a small plate with mini cupcakes and went from table to table offering people a taste. "My mom made it," she announced proudly. People smiled. Some took pictures with her. Everyone complimented the sweets. Ethan stood in a corner watching everything. He saw Sarah serving customers with a genuine smile. He saw Emma happy, handing out sweets. He saw the bakery full, alive, exactly as he had imagined. And he felt something tug at his chest. Pride, not in himself, in her, in Sarah, who had survived so much, who had fought alone, who was now there with her own business, truly smiling. Around 3 in the afternoon, the traffic started to slow down. Sarah leaned against the counter, exhausted but happy. "We sold almost everything." She looked at the empty shelves. "I told you," Ethan approached. "You did," she laughed, tiredly. "You were right." Emma threw herself into Ethan's lap, yawning. "I'm tired. But that was fun." "It was a lot of fun," he agreed, kissing her forehead. Sarah looked at the two of them. Her heart was full. This was happening. For real. She had a business, a place of her own, something she had built with her own hands. And she wasn't alone. "Ethan," she called. He looked at her. "Thank you for everything, for believing, for staying, for everything. You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "None of this would be possible without you." Ethan placed Emma in the chair, where she immediately rested her head and started dozing off. He walked closer to Sarah. "This is yours. You deserve every second of this." Sarah felt her eyes fill up, but this time they were good tears. "I never imagined my life could be like this." "Like what?" "Happy," she replied simply. Ethan smiled. "And it's going to get even better. You'll see." Sarah looked around one more time, at the bakery that was now hers, at Emma sleeping in the chair, at Ethan by her side. And for the first time in her life, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she deserved all of it. She deserved to be happy. She deserved to start over. She deserved to have a family. And when she locked the bakery doors at the end of the day, with Ethan carrying a sleeping Emma in his arms and her walking beside them, Sarah knew. Her life had changed forever, and it was just the beginning. The bakery was silent. The last customer had left half an hour ago. Sarah had flipped the sign to "closed" and locked the door. Emma was sleeping in a chair, wrapped in Ethan's jacket. The girl's gentle breathing was the only sound besides the cloth Sarah was wiping the counter with. The lights were dim. The streetlight filtered softly through the storefront window. The smell of chocolate and vanilla still filled the air. Sarah looked around, at the empty shelves, at the tables where so many people had smiled today, at everything she had built. This was hers. She ran her hand over the counter again, feeling the smooth wood. Her eyes stung. "Hey," Ethan's voice came softly. Sarah turned around. He was standing a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. "Just finishing up here," she quickly wiped her face. "It's already clean," he smiled faintly. "You've wiped it down about 5 times already." Sarah gave a wet laugh. "Yeah, I guess so." Ethan walked closer and stopped beside her. He gently took her hand. Sarah looked at their joined hands, then at him. "Ethan, I need to tell you something," he interrupted softly. Her heart raced. Ethan took a deep breath. "I've made a lot of investments in my life. I've put money into companies, businesses, projects." He squeezed her hand. "But none of them was as important as you." Sarah's eyes filled up. "You were the biggest investment of my life," he continued. "Not because of this place, but because of what you gave me. Purpose. Meaning, you showed me what really matters." A tear rolled down her cheek. "You and Emma changed my life completely," Ethan said firmly, "and I don't want to go back to living without it. Without you two." Sarah tried to speak, but her voice failed. Ethan took another step closer. I want to be part of your lives, forever. He held her gaze. If you'll let me, I want to be family. Sarah covered her face with her hands, sobs escaping. Ethan pulled her into a hug. She clung to him, crying, but it was pure happiness. I love you, Sarah, he said against her hair. I love you and I love Emma. I want to be here, on the good days and the bad days, forever. Sarah pulled away slightly, looking at him with red eyes. Are you sure? You know everything about my past. I know everything, he held her face, and I love you even more for it. You are the strongest person I know. I love you too, she finally managed to say. So much. I was just afraid to say it. I thought it was too good to be true. Never, he said firmly. I'm never leaving, never. Sarah nodded, crying again. I love you. Ethan pulled her back in. They stayed embraced in the middle of the empty bakery. Until a sleepy little voice came from behind them. Are you hugging? They quickly separated. Emma was standing there, rubbing her eyes. Sorry, sweetie. Sarah wiped her face. Did we wake you? Emma walked up to them, still sleepy. She stopped and looked at both of them, at Sarah with red eyes, at Ethan holding her hand, and she smiled. Now I have a dad. Sarah felt her heart stop. Ethan was completely motionless. Emma looked at him with those clear eyes full of trust. Are you my dad now? Ethan slowly knelt down, meeting her height. His eyes were shining. Do you want me to be? I do. Emma nodded seriously. I always wanted a dad, and I want you. Ethan had to take a deep breath. Then I am, his voice cracked. If your mom allows it, I want to be your dad. Emma looked at Sarah. Do you allow it, Mommy? Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded, crying. Emma threw herself into Ethan's arms. He held her tightly, closing his eyes. I promise to take care of both of you, he said softly. Always. No matter what happens. Do you really promise? Emma asked against his shoulder. I promise. With all my heart. Emma pulled away and looked at him seriously. You won't leave. Never, Ethan said firmly. I'm never leaving. You're my daughter now, and I'll take care of you forever. Emma smiled wide and hugged him again. Sarah knelt down too, hugging both of them. They stayed there, the three of them together on the bakery floor. Now my family is complete, Emma said happily. Sarah and Ethan looked at each other over her head. This was real. It was love. It was family. It was forever. When they stood up, Emma held both their hands. Can I sleep in the middle tonight? Sarah laughed. You can, my love. They turned off the lights and left. Ethan locked up while Sarah put Emma in the car. Outside, they stood for a moment. Did that really happen? Sarah asked softly. It did. Ethan pulled her close. And it's just the beginning. I still can't believe it. Believe it. He kissed her forehead. You deserve all of this. We deserve it, she corrected. Ethan smiled. Yes, we deserve it. They got into the car. Ethan drove home. But it wasn't just Sarah's house anymore. It was their house. When they arrived, Ethan carried Emma inside. He gently put her in bed. He tucked her in. He kissed her forehead. Sarah watched. And she knew she had made the right choice. To trust, to love, to let someone in. They went back to the living room. Sarah leaned against Ethan on the couch, tired, but happy. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For saving us. You saved yourself, he corrected. I just stayed by your side. And that was everything. It was exactly what we needed. They stayed like that until they fell asleep, embraced, complete. Outside, the city was still alive. Life went on. But there, in that simple house, a new family had been born, built not on blood, not on obligation, but on love, on choice, and on the certainty that no matter what came, they would face it together, forever.